Welcome to the October 11th, 2022 school committee meeting. I'm the chair, Elizabeth Spinney, and I call the meeting to order. First on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, we're moving on. Next item, general business. We have a presentation from CPAC, from the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. Please come on up and introduce yourselves to Grafton. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. This is a really high chair. You're really high. Okay. Well, thanks for having us. We're very excited to come and present and tell you all about CPAC, what's happening for this year. And I am Stella Dekas. I have two boys in the Grafton school system.
Sarah Goggin. I have one son, 8, at North Street, Tate. It rhymes. It's so great. So great.
Oh, your husband's 8. Yeah, I did.
His dad's name is Nate.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember tonight how long I've been participating in CPAC, and I think it's 5 years. I think I started participating 5 years ago and then became a board member about 4 years ago, and was just really inspired when Tate started at 3 to give back in some way because we were so blown away with the level of support and services he got. So it's been a great experience being a part of CPAC.
I'm Heather Nato. I am the treasurer this year after 2 years of serving as chair. Many of you know my son Johnny, who is in 3rd grade this year. He started in the Grafton School District when he turned 3, and he is doing wonderfully. And we are just hoping that he continues to grow and move forward in his IEP.
I mean, do you have other kids?
No. They're teenage girls, so no. They can ignore me. Yes, I have a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. I'm sorry. No, sorry.
So Stella asked me to do the slide with the most words on it, which I'm happy to do. We worked on this mission statement a number of years ago, and we wanted to share it with you, so I'll read. Fueled by love and advocacy for our own children with special needs, the Grafton CPAC aspires to positively influence, first, the best possible education outcomes for all children with special needs, a collaborative partnership with the Special Education Department, School Committee, and the Grafton community, and then the sub-bullet is we're here tonight doing just what this says, which is regular scheduled interaction with the school committee when we can come and advise on issues, questions, talk about what we're working on, areas of opportunity all related to special ed. And then also to provide supportive resources and mentorship for families of children with special needs in our community.
And we meet monthly, usually the second Thursday, of the month. So we've had our September meeting, which is our kickoff. We got a nice update on ESY, how the summer program went. We were excited to hear that it all went well. And then this is our schedule for the rest of the year. So we have some this Thursday, we have the basic rights presentation, and the Federation is delivering that. And then various through the years, we get updates on like the school to work program coming up, the pre-K program from Nicole. And then what we do is we host our elections in April. So that's kind of one of the topics we want to discuss about possibly moving those elections to the June meeting. So like this past year, we had Leora on board with CPAC as chair, and she was elected to the school committee. So it's like she kind of dropped off in the middle of the year. But
and then having that the month before Everyday Heroes.
So it's like we were working on it the entire time, and then somebody new comes in right before that. So we think it should push down a little bit.
We know you didn't drop out in spirit, though, just for the record.
We're not really allowing that to happen.
I'm still on the text chain.
Yeah.
And that's what's coming up for this year. And then we'll be continuing to add programs as we get feedback from the participants. They voice different topics that they want to discuss, and we'll find anybody who will talk about them.
These are some of the topics that we addressed last year. So some of these will probably cross over to topics we approach again this year. Again, like Stella said, it's all about really on feedback on what we are receiving, what we're hearing in the meetings, and what we are hearing just from direct messages or emails from the community about what they want to learn a little bit more about. So, as you can see, Lisa Rice came and spoke to us last year, which we may discuss again this year. Basic rights, again, we did that last year. That's a requirement for yearly. The state comes and presents and talks to everyone about their basic rights for their student. Again, but we talked a little bit about some things that won't continue. Mask mandate, we won't have that discussion. ESY update we did already. And Everyday Hero. So these are just basically some of the things that we talked about last year and hoping to add on to this year.
And then these are the topics for this year that we want to discuss. We've had some communication from parents, so we are trying to guide them in the proper ways to approach, any type of, discussions they want to have, how to do it, within the parameters of their schools and make sure they're reaching out to the most effective people. And then literacy again, Lisa Rice hopefully will come.
No pressure, we know it's
Yeah.
public record here.
And then again, one of our biggest
Talking points.
is like the inclusion in the classrooms. We love when the kiddos are included in everyday school roles. Like today, I was over at North Street, in North Grafton for the Fun Fair pep rally kicking off, and seeing everybody combined and with just mixed in as loud as it was, they really did a great job. So having that inclusion, and then especially throughout the schools with the other enrichment and field trips and stuff like that. And then again, we want to support our teachers, paraprofessionals. They're our heart of our kids. Without them, I don't know how they would do it in a day. So we want to support them as much as possible, and then giving back with our everyday heroes. Continuing that. We've been hearing over and over again how much they'd love to be recognized, and including that. Just more visibility. I feel like now that we're kind of coming out of COVID a bit, we are hopefully be able to get out more and maybe do some meet and greets. We've asked the special education department if we could get together and maybe do some kind of just put a face to a name. I think over the past couple of years we've had IEPs meetings over Zoom and stuff like that, so it's kind of nice to be able to meet either your chair in person or and different people like that. So we want to do something in that. And then this is all the ways that we can be reached. So Facebook is a great way. People will message us on Facebook and ask for help there, or just can you point me in the right direction, especially our email. And then we have our webpage, which has links to kind of our meeting minutes and all our bulletins and documents.
We have two Facebook pages. One page that was set up, this Grafton CPAC page, is a not interactive page. It's a page that we are able to post things on, but no one else can really post things on. When Leora and I were chair, Leora created this community group that we invited everyone to, and that's more of a communication page that people have questions, or they have feedback, or they want to ask a question to the community to find out. That's the community page, so we have a couple ways to contact everyone. And we've received messages through Facebook or email, again, like Stella said, just to people have questions that they don't necessarily feel comfortable asking in public.
Any questions for us?
All right, thank you so much. Any questions from the committee? Yes, Amy.
Thank you so much for coming in. I love that you guys have come in year after year. We had a little bit of interruption, but now we've managed to get that all straightened out, and it's so great to see the parents that are in the trenches, so to speak, helping us, because when you tell parents how to follow that chain of communication, it helps the school committee members not have to field so many of those questions. So I thank you for that. I had a question about meeting attendance. Do you find that it's still up since you're on Zoom? Or is it kind of falling off?
I would say it's false. We're not getting a great response, and like Bob always tells us, it's because people are happy. If you're unhappy, those are the people who are going to show up at the meeting, right? So we try to get the word out as much through notifying through the building principals, through putting things on Facebook, direct emails, and Swift Reach, and letting everyone know that these meetings are there. I don't know if it's partially like if they come to a meeting, they feel like we're gonna sign them up, or or maybe
Why
they're
would
not
they think
comfortable.
that?
I know, right? Or if they're not comfortable discussing their child, or we have found. I mean, even when we had so many questions about literacy and literacy programming in town and direct messages. So we brought Lisa in. We did all this literacy program. We didn't have what I expected for attendance. So I think, unfortunately, our attendance isn't as up as it had been in the beginning. I know. But we wanted to continue to do the virtual because we find that it works. People probably, if you're going to do anything, I feel like you're able to jump on the computer for an hour.
The level of flexibility with virtual seems like it's
Right.
been very well received.
Yes.
Even thinking back pre-pandemic to when the meetings were consistently in person, it ebbed and flowed some. I would say last year virtual, we were anywhere between sort of 5 or 6 to 10, 12, depending on the topic. So I don't know that there's a hugely material change, but I do think the feedback we've gotten along the way is that the virtual is helpful. I think though, and Stella's point around looking for other types of events for folks to make connections and meet others in the community would be a really good, helpful add. But I don't know that moving fully away from virtual would be helpful
Yeah,
for
no,
the
I don't think
for the
so, yeah.
population.
No, I wouldn't think so either.
Yeah.
Just based on what I've seen. So,
Right,
no,
yeah.
great. I'm glad you guys have continued online. Can I ask one more? Or is there somebody else?
Well, Laura did have her hand up.
All right.
but-
I can wait though. I was
Go
just,
ahead,
well, two things. I was gonna just
up.
jump in and say, I think probably the benefit that I see from you is way more than the meetings and all of those messages you get, and people reaching out to you is what probably people need the most. As much as I know these topics are very important and it's great that you have them, but knowing that people have a resource to come and ask questions and for you to guide them through the process, I would say is probably your number one benefit. So, and just my thanks to all of you for being that guidance and advocate for families. I guess my question is, well, I'll say one. So I love that we're having this conversation. One of your jobs is to advise the school committee. Anything you want to advise us on? Is there anything that we could be doing to help you more? I mean, we don't work together, but we do, you know what I mean? So I'm not asking for like, you guys should do this, this, and that, but like, I don't know. Is there more better things we could be doing for a relationship? Like, do you want to come more often to meetings?
So what's interesting is that I find when parents contact me and they'll ask, what should I do for my child? Like, I can't tell you, right? Like, I am a parent just like you. I would say I'm an expert on one child with special needs. On my kid, I know, and even on that, I'm like, I'm not quite sure. We've all had conversations with each other to be like, are we doing the right thing? Because you just don't know. So I think that what you have to remember is that we're still parents, that's still learning about the different needs that our parents need, our children need. So I think that I would, if we had a concern, we would probably go to Bob and talk about things. But I don't feel like there's anything that we're feeling that our students are being, our kids are being denied or anything at this point. I think.
And I was gonna say, I think they just want a resource, like, how should I be doing this, or who can I go to for this? I think rather than asking in a meeting, because we do take open forum discussion, that way it helps kind of do it over Messenger. It's like,
100%.
maybe we don't even know who they are. Like, even when my kids started through the preschool program, like, I had Leora because she was right there with me, and I would ask her questions. So it's just like when you know somebody who's within the community, you can be able to ask them. So
Yeah.
I think part of the reason, and this has certainly been an evolution over at least the time I've been participating, and I think there's a lot of credit due, and I think, Heather, you touched on it, but our partnership with special ed administration, Bob and Nicole, who I know are right there, is so
monumental.
is so positive and so collaborative and so effective that I feel we're in a wildly different and positive place, and that's, at the end of the day, I think that's what's making us feel like we
We're in a good
can
spot.
add value.
That's
And so that I think is why it's working so well.
I want more people to come to the meetings to see, I mean, Bob and Nicole have the best interest of our students in mind, and people can speculate or come up with all these ideas. They want what's best for our students and for our kids, and that's just, it's palpable at the meeting, so.
And
And I-
just yesterday, I sent out an update to all the principals. I CC'd Bob on it to push out a flyer and, an update for the meeting for Thursday. And now teachers have like class apps, so they're able to like post on there as well. Because I know when, before I joined the CPAC, like I would see the meeting and it would be like in person. I'm like, okay, I'll go to it, and then I won't, and then I didn't go. And then until like kind of you have a reason to go, or just, you're like, oh, I can attend, it's virtual, I can plug in for, as much as you can, I think really helps. So I think getting the word out, I know Bob sends out his, weekly email or when it posts, but then it just like, if you have the principal send it, and if you have like your special education teacher send it, I think that reach will help to drive more attendance. So we're gonna stay on that this year and hope for more people Thursday and
Yeah.
throughout the year as well.
I mean, you can see all the attendance we get, so. Thank you.
Every Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
Amy, do you have another question?
Laura.
I just saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
Hi, guys. Really happy to see you all here. So one of the things that I know has been, I wouldn't say a challenge, but sort of a feature of CPAC is that it tends to skew towards younger students in terms of the parent involvement. Even, with some of the awards and some of the things, it again tends to skew to the elementary schools. Is that kind of still the trend? Is there anything we can be doing to kind of reach out or help you reach out to some of the older grades? Because I think that's where inclusion can become more tricky, and you could probably, you and we could help. So just wondering kind of if that trend continues, and if you have any thoughts on how we might bring in some of the older students, or families with older students.
Yeah, and I think with Everyday Heroes this year, we added a component where a student could nominate another student, and they, didn't have to pay any fee or anything like that. We gave them the award. So that helped bring up the nominations for like middle and high school. But, we do see a lot of, awards to the younger elementary grades, maybe because they're smaller and, they have more, kind of needs at a young age, where they kind of, then they grow up a little bit and they, maybe don't require, as much hand-holding as they did when they were smaller. But, so we're continue to, go on with that, nominating students, and then just for nomination, and they won't be charged anything.
We went from 0 nominations the year before, middle
High
and
school.
high. Was
We
there
had
one?
for high school, one for middle school, yeah.
2, I can't remember the numbers,
It was,
but
yeah,
it was a
plenty
nice,
this year.
nice change.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think some of the topics for our monthly meetings also could be more targeted.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's at least one that is on the list that is focused more on the older
Yep.
kids.
Mhm.
I think it's, though, a fair challenge and question, and we should be thinking about and reserve the right to come back to you with some great ideas about how we can do more. I think to make sure that, one, that population knows the availability of the meetings, and 2, subject matter that's meaningful.
Well, and you all have students in the elementary school, right? So that's your experience and that's where you're coming from. So makes sense. It just seems like even some of the people who were involved in CPAC in the past, as their kids got older, they became less involved. So it's just,
Speaking from a parent's perspective, if it's possible to know less than nothing when you were starting out, that's where I was.
No.
And now I'm learning little, making progress. I'm hoping the reason those families don't participate is because they now know literally everything under the sun, and someday I will be there too.
we'll know everything. Let me know how that goes.
Yeah.
And it sort of jumps on the fact, saying that we know about our children, and I think that's one of the harder things about it going forward. We're focusing so much on, last year my big focus was social thinking, because that was where Johnny was struggling. So, I mean, of course that's helpful to everyone, but, those are where our mindset is. So, yeah, it would be nice to get involvement of some of the parents of those older students to see where it struggles them, because, like I said, we don't know what the future is bringing for our own children. So it'd be nice to see a little bit about that.
Thanks, guys.
Still have another question?
My question's actually relevant to that. It was about the transition program. I know that there's a seminar or something along the lines of that Know Your Rights seminar, there's also a transition seminar. Is that something that's on your radar for this year, or do we not have any students that would
We
apply
had
to?
Becky Lawson present about transition a couple of years ago, who's a parent in town, who works with some transition programs. So we had her. We have some resources up on the site for that. Yeah, that's something we can certainly. There are different programs I think the state offers that we've been looking into to possibly use into our meetings and present to our meetings as well.
It's just something I was recently asked about, so I
Yeah.
figured I'd ask here.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the committee? All right, well, thank you very much for coming in. This was great. Thank you for everything you do. You're welcome to stay, but feel free to go if you want. I'm sure you have lots to do, too.
Thank
You're very
you.
welcome.
Thank
Nice
you,
to see
guys.
All right, next up, we have the special education report. Bob and Nicole.
Just gonna pop this open because I have cheat notes on one of my slides that I couldn't print, so. Well, thank you very much for having us. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to share with you what it is that we have going on in special education. I just want to put, before it is that we start, I want to put in a little bit of a plug for our CPAC. Recently, the Blackstone Valley Consortium members were having a meeting, and one of the member special education directors had asked if there were any successful CPACs because they were really, really struggling with the conversation and just kind of getting parents involved in CPAC. And I actually reached out to our CPAC and asked them if they'd be willing to have that conversation with the local district, and they were, and they did, and it went over very, very well. So our CPAC isn't just something it is that we're very proud of here in Grafton, but it's actually a model for the surrounding community. So they really have done an amazing job. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, without any further ado, here we go. So we're gonna just start off with our ESY program update. So we did the entire program this year at Grafton High School. That was a little bit of an undertaking because, as you're well aware, that means that there's quite a bit of equipment that needed to be moved. Typically, we have to move some equipment anyway, but especially at the early elementary levels, rather than being in one of those buildings, having them all up at the high school meant that there was a lot more movement that needed to take place, bathrooms that needed to be kind of retrofitted, and kind of figuring out the logistics of what that all was. There was some huge positives to that move, however, and because of that move, first of all, staffing, which is always a challenge in the ESY program, and especially with the oppressive heat it is that we had in the months of late July and August, it allowed us to share a lot more staff, which meant that if a student was out and we had an additional staff here, it made it a lot easier to move them over there. So sharing staffing was a huge plus. Having a building that had AC was phenomenal, let me just say. Even in the early elementaries, if you have an AC classroom, but then that student has to go out to get a related service or, those kinds of things, those hallways become oppressive in those buildings. So that was a big appreciation for staff, parents, and students. Having the transportation in a central location also made sure that you didn't have buses going to the wrong school to pick up the kid, and kind of took care of all of those things. And in the same way, parent convenience of having a one-stop shop. All right, are they in North Grafton Elementary School, or are they at the high school? It kind of, are they in North Street School? It kind of cut out all of that. So in that way, the ESY program being located at the high school made it much easier. Of course, the fact that Bob was there for all but 2 of the days made it a lot easier for me too, because now I'm not running around to different sites. I'm in one spot, being able to make my walk around, making sure that everybody's all set and everything. So it really worked out very, very well.
And those pictures are a couple of the rooms. So that top picture is one of our ABA-based rooms. So we had set up kind of cubbies and small, desks and tables for kids. So that was our preschool to 1 kind of ABA-based direct teaching room. And then the bottom picture there was a classroom for our medical needs students. So there's kind of a changing table. We have some medical, screens up. So we really kind of reconfigured spaces to fit what we needed. And it worked out really well, I think, for a lot of people, so.
ESY is actually a school within a school, and this year with that, it really was evident up there at the high school. So just to kind of give you an idea, when we look at what the attendance was like, you can see that there's certain parts of the program that are very, very well attended, and there are other parts of the program that are not as well attended. So when we talk about program classes and intensive classrooms, those are kids that are there Monday through Thursday, for either half or a full day. When we talk about the tutorial classes, the reading, ELA, those are classes where the students come in for usually 2 days a week. They don't have transportation, and those are not as well attended. And that's considering each student having attended at least 2 days. If you looked at individual student attendance in total days, the numbers would actually look better with the program classes, and they would look not as rosy with the tutorial classes. So there's some things it is that we want to do to kind of address that. So some of the things it is that we're really looking at to change for next year is, first of all, having a first day orientation that especially is helpful for our younger folks who are going to be an unfamiliar building with a lot of unfamiliar adults. Will help ease some of the concerns of our parents, take care of those, having those face-to-face conversations about transition, which is always difficult, as ESY first starts, making sure that everybody's all set up. Also, having conversations about the change in time and length of the tutorial program. Part of the struggle of the tutorial program is that you're not sure about when it's going to be, how long it's going to be, and so that part of it else is always a challenge for parents. So one of the things that we're going to do is the tutorial program will be a day a week throughout the entire 5 weeks of the ESY, and we'll provide transportation for that day. And hopefully that will encourage parents to have their children participate in the ESY program, because transportation is one of those things also that can be a sticky wicket. And then finally, a change in the notification process. It's something that's discussed in the IEP every single year, but for whatever reason, when you reach out to parents about it and everything, with the kids, especially in the tutorial programs, sometimes you feel like it's the first time you've had the conversation. So one of the things that we're doing is we're creating a form that kind of seeks parent input as far as, do you intend on having your child attend ESY, getting some information, and having more conversation, not only at the IEP, but mid-year, and then as we get closer to the ESY program, so that that relationship and the commitment to participate in that program is solidified. First of all, because we recommend the program because we feel as though there's a need, and we want to make sure those students' needs are getting met. But then additionally, if you have students who aren't attending, that can mean that you have staff that you're paying for that aren't being fully utilized. So we want to make sure that we're also mindful about our financial responsibilities, so making sure that we have the maximum participation as much as possible. All right.
So this is me. So our 18 to 22 program, as you all know, we're expanding that a little bit. I know that Tony provided a bit of update, Tony LeMay, on space and what that kind of is looking like. So I'm going to avoid that part of the conversation. But this is our new program logo. So it's going to be called the GAIN program, Grafton Achieving Independence Now. We worked closely with a business, the Marketing Studio, to come up with this. The goal here is really a couple things. We wanted to make sure that the Grafton piece was a critical component to that. It's a part of this community. It's a part of Grafton Public Schools. So we kept that Grafton green in that component there, but we also wanted to grow the program's independence from Grafton High School as well. So really working through this logo was an interesting experience that I've never had, but it was very interesting to explore how that can be represented, all those key points in one graphic depiction. So I thought the marketing studio did a great job. Myself and Sean Langevin, the special education teacher for our 18 to 22 program, worked with them to really come up with this lovely logo. So we're really excited about it. You'll be seeing some signs hopefully soon, just kind of promoting. Hopefully its grand opening coming up soon. One thing we did shift this year to kind of start to ease that transition. In the past, we set up transportation for students to come to Grafton High School. Through work with our 18 to 22 program, we were really feeling like some of that was a missed opportunity for some of our kids. So we've actually started having staff transport the students to the program, which is very similar to how that runs in the adult program living space. Staff members go and pick up students. They're no longer students, they're young adults. I gotta reshift my mind there, but so we shifted our process for that. They're out and about driving all day long with students, going to different job sites and going to different educational opportunities throughout the day. So this adds one more opportunity for us to work on travel training, road safety, talking a little bit about, safety in the car, like those kind of things that, a transportation driver is there to drive a student to school safely. Here, our staff can really work with parents too on getting out of the house, which we all struggle with sometimes, being able to navigate the community, Grafton, what direction we should go. Remember, we're going to this, job site, so where should we go from here? Really kind of gaining a little bit more independence without one more opportunity. And that has been going really well for our staff and for our young adults that are accessing that. Let's see, let's do the next one. So obviously we haven't moved to our new space, right? But that doesn't mean we're not doing solid, fantastic programming right where we are. So these are a couple job sites and different things we're accessing. You see lovely Millbury Street Elementary School there. We have some students that are doing internships at Millbury Street as well as South Grafton Elementary School in our early childhood preschool classrooms. We have students that go to the Blessing Barn, Tractor Supply, Best Western, Hannaford, up at the top, quite fetching right there in the middle of town. And then they also utilize the YMCA for exercise or different kind of leisure type activities, but also for an internship or job site there. And then we also have students participating in our Diverse Scholars Program through Framingham State University. So Framingham has a great program in which they pair students, pair our students with students that are attending Framingham State University. They take a class together, and they're it's like a buddied paired program that Framingham State runs. So we have one of our job coaches attends with the students, connects them to their buddy, and kind of works to help that buddy understand our students a little bit better. So it's a really great program. And we also have some students going to Tufts to help support there. So although we're not in our new program space yet, we've got a lot of great things going on for students. All of this also will continue as we move into our new space. It just gives us that one additional internship and opportunity internally through our new space. So. Still me. Behavior programming. So Bob and I wanted to give a little bit of an update on what we have here in Grafton that really is oriented to students that have social, emotional, and behavioral needs. So we have a number of staff members that make up that group and that team that focuses on this for students. Those include our BCBAs, our district BCBAs, as well as the BCBA in each building, so board certified behavior analyst. We have school adjustment counselors that work towards this, school psychologists, of course, our special education teachers and regular education teachers, our building administration. It's such a collaborative group that any one student that maybe requires some behavioral programming doesn't likely have one person that's responsible for that. So that can vary. So we might have students that have behavioral programming that is ABA based. Their learning style requires ABA intervention through whether that's discrete trial training, so that one-to-one teaching that might occur in a repetitive kind of format and a distraction-free format. We have like task analysis that might occur, which is kind of more your diverse tasks like washing your hands or completing a activity of daily living that requires to be taught explicitly step by step. So that is our kind of behavioral instruction format. And then we have students that require behavior support planning. So that might be based off of a functional behavior an assessment that took place that's really looking at targeting challenging behavior in the classroom. And that can be in our kind of general education inclusion classrooms. It can be in our substantially separate classrooms. It really depends on the student and the student need for that. That's kind of more our ABA alone umbrella. That also kind of expands a little bit to social emotional support and students that might be exhibiting behavioral challenges based on their social emotional needs. So that programming would be beyond the use of a BCBA. That would involve a school adjustment counselor, school psychologist, and again, would be the same type of process using that functional behavior assessment or an FBA to explore really what is going on for that student. And then developing specific individual plans for that student, which may include counseling services. It may include a behavior support plan, incentive type planning, really a lot of relationship building, building skills in the area of coping and replacement behavior. And so we have that occurring in our, again, inclusion classrooms, substantially separate classrooms. And then we also, especially at our middle school, high school level, have that additional tier of a support. So we have, at the middle school, we call it the Lighthouse Program. At the high school, it's more sophisticated for high school, right? It's not as labeled that way. It's called the Student Success Program, along with our transition programming. So this type of program is a little tougher to understand because it's really two programs in one. So transition program that folks may have heard of is focused on those students that might be coming back from a lengthy absence. So students that maybe were hospitalized for whether that's a mental health crisis or hospitalized even for like concussion-based symptoms that have that social emotional component and might struggle to transition back into their regular schedule. So maybe they missed a lot of work, maybe they're, really anxious about getting back into the classroom, worried about, perception or what people are thinking about them. So that transition program helps support that. It's a short-term level of programming, really like 6 to 8 weeks. We want the kids back up and in their kind of typical school day as quickly as possible. Our Student Success Program is the other component to that. So that is a longer-term intervention. It is individualized to students that maybe chronically are struggling with their social emotional well-being, students that maybe are chronically struggling with their behavioral presentation in school. We have a lot of students with maybe some school refusal or school avoidance, as well as some students that have some heightened behavioral presentation. And that's a little longer term. We have mirrored programs at the middle school and high school. Those programs are staffed by a special education teacher. We felt like that was a really important component to this program. As much as I say kids turn 3 every day, I also say, like, people don't just have a mental health crisis during ACT support, right? Like they have mental health crises at any point in the day. They might need their instruction outside of their classroom at any point in time during the day. So if we only have a teacher slotted to one period a day or something, we're not really properly supporting that student. So we do have a special education teacher that is in that classroom throughout the day to support our transition students and any students that are in our student success program, as well as a paraprofessional. And we get real creative on how that works for kids and how we get kids back into their typical school day. So that special education teacher may decide, well, I'm gonna go to ELA because this student is struggling during his ELA block. And I'm gonna co-teach with that teacher in ELA for the day and explore how things are going. Or I need my paraprofessional to go and support this student here, or I need somebody in the room in case someone's having some challenges. So both of those programs at the middle school and high school are staffed by the special education teacher and a paraprofessional. And then we have our school adjustment counselor that oversees both programs. So they are a half FTE to the middle school and a half to the high school, which we think is also a wonderful way of staffing that, because if we have students that do transition from middle school to high school, they still have that counseling support that they've worked really hard to build a relationship with. That support is still there at the high school. So it is kind of a nice component to our programming. But that is much more focused on that, social, emotional, behavioral type lens, and less of that kind of only ABA umbrella. Oh, this is me too. Okay, so
She's on a roll.
a lot of slides right in a row. So staffing needs. We are always in need of paraprofessionals. So I just want to throw that plug out there. If anyone, knows of anybody that has a deep care for student success and wants to support and help, please have them reach out to me. We are still in need of paraprofessionals. We still have openings to fill, but we also have, paraprofessionals are kind of an entry-level position in an educational field, so that does have a higher kind of turnover than some of our other positions. So I do feel like even if we're full, let's just keep, bringing people in and getting people's interest, because it's such an essential component to our special education students. The paraprofessionals are in there with our students every day, working with them and working very hard. And when we do have a shortage in this area, it's very challenging for our students, also our staff, and I think it's a really essential component. So I want to give that little plug, paraprofessionals.
All right, we're gonna give Nicole a little bit of a rest, let her catch her breath for a little bit. Talk a little bit about professional development. So we embarked on a PD with Landmark, which is internationally renowned for its work with students with dyslexia and other language-based disabilities. They provided in-person PD to the Millbury Street School 6th grade team around language-based learning disabilities. And then once that particular PD was completed, we had some additional monies that was set aside in that account. So we offered PD through the Landmark outreach to the Grafton public school community. And as a result of that, people took classes on things such as reading comprehension, language development, the science of reading, specifically about dyslexia, written expression. I know that there were also some executive functioning classes that were in there. It was really, really valuable to staff. One of the big takeaways from this is that people think that when you're working with students with language-based learning disabilities, it's around making sure that they have access to the language. Actually, it's around them being able to manage, focus, and control the information that's constantly coming at them. And that really was the big takeaway that I discovered myself from the Landmark PD, because I participated in it as well. It's really about the executive functioning part, which resulted in us looking at some other programs that I'll be talking about further on as well. Executive functioning PD and evidence-based programming. So as an outgrowth of what it is that we experienced with Landmark, we had conversations about how is it that we can help our students become better at managing these executive functioning skills that we find many students have weaknesses with. And not all these students are students with disabilities. They're just students that have a hard time organizing themselves. However, if it goes unaddressed, it can manifest itself as a disability as they get older and the demands of executive functioning become greater and greater. So at Grafton Middle School, all 7th grade students are going through a 10-week executive functioning program. I worked very hard in conjunction with Principal Kapaska to make that a reality, and that's been kicked off and has had a very strong start. And at Grafton High School, students in the Academic Development Center 2 also receive the executive functioning curriculum to help support their executive functioning needs. The curriculum that we use is actually known as the SMARTS curriculum. It was developed by Dr. Lynn Metzer, who is the expert on executive functioning. She's the one that did a lot of the groundbreaking research and really made executive functioning a household name. So we're very, very pleased to have that here at Grafton Public Schools. And then reading PD, evidence-based programming. There is something about Lisa Rice. I spend more money through Lisa Rice than I swear to God I do through my wife, okay? I sign more POs, but it's for a good cause. And the good cause is to make sure that every single student that graduates from Grafton Public Schools is a reader. And you would think that that's not a very lofty goal, but there are some students who have significant struggles in the area of reading and have significant dyslexia issues. And for some of these students, reading is a real struggle. So we work together to continue to identify appropriate programming for students at all levels. We have a Language Live pilot going on at Grafton Middle School. Language Live is a program that Lisa did a lot of research on that came out of the work of a Tufts professor. She's going to talk a little bit more about it in her presentation, and it really was considered the best evidence-based program out there for students with reading disabilities, but that also is, it's not an intervention as much as it is something that they get access as a part of their classroom work every single day. So that's for our sub-separate programming at the middle school. And then we have Lindamood Paraprofessional Learning Communities. As a part of some work it is that I was doing on the other side on math, I had a conversation with Lindamood Bell and how it is that we might support them. And that conversation grew into creating professional development communities professional learning communities for our students who are utilizing Lindamood Bell programs, both in reading and in math. So we're going to have weekly professional learning communities to support our professionals who utilize those programs and working with our students to make sure that we're aware of the most recent practices. Some of these people took their training, 5-10 years ago. Make sure that they're up to date on the most recent practices. For those that are new to these particular programs, making sure that they're able to get off with a very strong start and be able to implement these programs so that we can have the highest efficacy. And then, of course, we have our ongoing Wilson and Sing Stars PD that we do quite regularly to make sure that our students have the highest quality reading intervention programs. And then on the math side is, again, as I was talking about earlier, I've been working with Jenny Droust to continue to identify appropriate programming for students at all levels as a result of the research it is that we did. Jenny herself went to Cloud9 PD, which is another Lindamood Bell program. She thought very, very highly of it for our elementary school age students. So we've been implementing that. We have had 3 people recently go through that PD. We have 3 more right now that are slotted to go through that PD to make sure that, again, we're able to provide the best evidence-based program in math as well. And then for a speech language pathologist, We have updated our speech language services criteria across all developmental levels. We have 2 programs that our speech language pathologists actually are using currently. One is known as SLP Toolkit, and that has some specific activities and some organizing structure for speech language pathologists to make it easier to take their notes, track student attendance, and things of that nature. So we're utilizing that along with some of the materials for different disability areas that are also evidence-based interventions. So that really helps to support our speech language pathologists. And then there's another program called Everyday Speech. That program is a little bit more encompassing in that it has not just activities for students that have speech and language difficulties, but it also gets into the social pragmatics for those students that are really struggling with how their social communication and how it is that have reciprocal communication. So those activities are involved in everyday speech as well. And since it does move into that social emotional programming, our school adjustment counselors and our school psychologists have access to these programs.
Okay, back to me. So paraprofessional, professional development. So these are a couple of the topics. We've had one professional development day. So these were a couple of the topics that we had for our paraprofessionals. There was training specific to data collection and targeted interventions for some of our students that have more challenging needs, whether that's behavioral needs or more discrete programming, to make sure that any updates to those interventions are kind of well coordinated with the paraprofessional. We had professional development on how we support reading and literacy during the foundations block for our elementary paraprofessionals. We had specific preschool PD for our paraprofessionals that are within our preschool program, how to get them engaged in different play and different things of that nature. We had some team building activities that went on in some of our buildings for a lot of our paraprofessionals, which for some is always kind of a nightmare, right? Like when you're doing the shares or something along those lines, but for some they love it, and it always builds a team just a little bit better to come out of your comfort zone a little bit. And then we also still have access to our online master teacher portal for paraeducator, as well as safety care training, which I will jump into. I think that's our next slide. Perfect. So safety care. Safety care is our de-escalation and physical management curriculum. So our staff that may be required to de-escalate a student, we make sure that they are trained specifically in safety care. So in past years, we had used CALM, it was called. It was just a different curriculum. We did shift to safety care just because of the availability for different populations. So safety care expands to kind of our youngest learners. It has specific training for specific types of learners. So it just gives a little bit more options for us, that in working with Sarah Moore, our district BCBA, we felt like it was a good shift for us. So last year we started training, we continued a CALM safety care where we had individuals that might have still been trained in CALM. Last year we shifted everyone over as we went through the year to our safety care curriculum. So this is our first year in which we're kind of refresher for safety care, where we're retraining all of our staff. Safety care does require a 2-day training to start. There's one whole day just on that verbal de-escalation part of the curriculum. So really talking about many things, talking about your environment and how you can set up your environment for safety. And it goes all the way through to an escalated situation and how we might de-escalate a student, how we can be mindful of our body language, how we can be mindful of our space. Really trains people very specifically into that. Safety Care has the bonus where we can train and certify people just on that portion, which is nice. It's not something that we have in many curriculums that have that verbal de-escalation. So we actually worked last year with each building. BCBA is a trainer. So the building-based BCBAs trained all of the paraprofessionals last year on that verbal component, so that we're all speaking the same language. We're all working with the students with kind of behavioral and social emotional needs that might escalate with that same language. The second portion of that curriculum is any physical management strategies. So how, if a student does escalate beyond the ability to de-escalate, where they're an imminent harm to themselves or somebody else, how staff can physically intervene with them in the safest way possible to maintain the student's safety, the safety of people around them, and the safety of the people that have to implement that. So that is what our safety care training is. We have targeted individuals in each of our buildings that go through the full training, that are able to use those skills if they are needed. It's pretty rare in our district where it does result in physical management. However, it has happened, and it does happen in an effort to keep everyone in the environment safe. So it's so important for us to do this as a training for our staff and make sure that as training as many people as we can on the verbal piece and how to de-escalate students will hopefully not bring us to that physical piece. So the more people we can train in that area, the better. So that is something that is kind of a crusade for us in the behavior learning department.
Electronic signatures for IEP documents. This is something that I've been chasing this for a while, and I'm very pleased to announce that this is something that we have secured. I'm having a conversation this week with the individuals from Power School Special Programs to talk about how it is that we are going to go through to implement this. Obviously, when you start talking about things like this, as special legal documents, we need to ensure that parents have the opportunity to opt out, because not everybody wants to have electronic signatures. We do have that opt-out on the parent welcome letter, and it's also up on the website. And then we're in the process of setting up with Power School, identifying the documents, who will be leads in the process, and who will be providing the documents. We've already kind of figured out a workflow in my office on how it is that we're going to do it. It will be documents that come out of the special education office, so it won't be impacting our line staff. And our hope is to help create a better turnaround from when it is that IEP documents leave our office to when it is that they get returned signed from the parents. One of the great frustrations for parents is that they forget about it, life gets busy, it kind of moves on and everything, and they get beyond that 30 days. We're required by regulation to notify the Department of Education that this IEP has gone beyond 30 days. And some parents get very, very upset and irritated by this notice. It's not something that we have a choice about. It doesn't make a difference if you've had conversations with your team chair or anything else. If the IEP hasn't been signed within those 30 days, we're required to send a letter that the parents get a copy of to the Bureau of Special Education Appeals. And so it's our hope that this will greatly decrease the number of IEPs it is that we have, that is a result which will help the paperwork flow for our office move much more smoothly. And having said that, what questions do you have for us?
Well, I think that last slide was maybe directed at me.
No pejoratives intended.
I saw you gonna.
No pejoratives intended. We all know life is a busy, busy animal.
Any questions from the committee? Laura?
I mean, I think you pulled the Jay Cummings of 2 weeks ago where you give us so much information, we're not gonna ask you a lot of questions. So that was great learning. He's a good modeler. Wow, I was blown away. I learned so much tonight, which I really appreciate. I really just wanted to highlight the executive functioning for all the 7th grade. That was new information to me, and I think that's phenomenal. Who is teaching that?
I don't remember the name of the
Okay.
teacher off the top of my head.
Does it come in like a
It's,
in there,
it's,
like,
yeah, it's in one of their related services, so when they go through the related services,
this-
those 10-week things it
Yeah.
is that they have, it's in that,
Perfect.
Oh, that's
okay.
that
amazing.
cycle.
So is
Yep.
something being
Taught to all students.
like, what are they, yeah, I get that, but how do they fit that in?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can find out.
Not that
So-
that's
So
I
what
mean,
it is
so
that,
important.
so, yeah, they actually, the classes that they have opposite their flex block.
Yeah, no, I
So,
know
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, I just was wondering, I mean, they're kind
So
of
it's in-
jammed packed.
during enrichment.
Yeah,
Enrichment.
Yeah.
But does that, if, like,
So
okay.
did something fall off?
They already had, like, health, computers,
Yeah.
gym, music,
So are they having to?
I don't,
Check
I know
it.
that I had the conversation with Roseanne, and I would love to tell you that I can recall it off the top of my head,
Oh, we'll find out.
unfortunately.
yeah, it's a fabulous thing. Can adults audit the class?
You know, the interesting thing is that when because I started exploring this, you know, at the tail end of the pandemic, and I myself took the online, it's not an evaluation. but it's-
screener.
Yeah, a screener.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about it is it's not a, you need EF or you don't need EF. What it does is it looks at your profile, and we all have strengths and weaknesses. So it just says, in your profile, these are your strengths, and these are some of your weaknesses, and these are some things that you could do to be better in that area, which is a very kind of, in some ways, a novel concept. So it was very, very interesting. And, you know, and also some of our strengths can be weaknesses. So if you're a person that's very, very driven by, you know, getting things done and dates and the rest of that stuff, then sometimes you need to step back and be more observant and be more of a listener. You know, so it doesn't just purely take a look at your strengths as, well, but it also says, because this is a strength of yours, you need to be aware of this, and you need to be aware of that, which was it was a very interesting take, which
Yeah.
I really liked.
Well, you had so much good information. I don't want to harp on this, but I love that it's something that we're giving to all students. Where in the past, sometimes it was tied with an IEP, and then they would get out of their IEP, but they might still, I mean, it's a lifelong skill. So,
Yep.
but great work all around. I love the GAIN logo. Sorry, I love it. It's so exciting. I know how difficult that is. Not just the logo, but the whole program. I can't, amazing work. So thanks all around. I appreciate everything you do and your team. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going through executive coaching for adults right now, Laura, so I can share the. Can you coach? I can share the contact if you want. It's great. I don't know. I'm learning. Any other questions?
It was very
No,
thorough.
it was super thorough.
I need a few days. I'm serious, it's a lot, and that's great, and I'll be Googling things and digging into it, and it's super. Love it.
The GAIN program, the job sites that you listed, do we have any kind of data on whether, over time, some of our students are offered paid employment afterwards? Is there are we tracking kind of
Yeah, so
success that way?
we do keep track of that. It really varies. The student goals are gonna be kind of different based on the individual, child. So, well, they're not children, right?
Young adults.
Young adults. So, we have some students where their goal would be for competitive employment. And then we have other students where that isn't quite their goal. Their goal is more kind of developing those skills to be able to have some supported employment. And then we have students that maybe even supported employment isn't really their goal. Their goal might be developing skills to help support maybe their life skills a little bit more than that vocational specific piece. So it depends on the students, but right now we have a fantastic group of kids that even, Sean and I have talked about, we have students that are driving themselves to their 18 to 22 program. We have students that are doing their internships currently independent, that just entered the program. So I think the interesting component is that program can be anything we need it to be for that student. So, the student that maybe is working independently maybe gets check-ins from the staff, or, Sean coordinates with that. the job site manager to say, like, how are things going? Is there any spot where I can coach this student differently? Do you need to have us come back in to help train a new task? And then we have students that will always maybe have somebody kind of with them at their job sites. So we do absolutely collect data on students with competitive employment. Over the last couple years with, COVID and everything like that, that has subsided. But, this current group, I think that we're going to be moving kids pretty quickly out of the program because they're going to be fully employed and doing exactly what we would hope for all of our kids, so.
Thank you. I had a couple of quick questions. For the summer program, you had identified some things that you were going to do to try to increase attendance for the tutorial programs.
Mhm.
How did you determine that those were the things that needed to be addressed? Did you get input from
Yeah,
parents
so-
or?
So when this year especially, because of circumstances beyond our control, I ended up doing planning out the entire summer program. So I was the person that, when parents didn't get back to us and everything, made phone calls to parents and everything. And so I'm the one that spoke to parents when they said that their kids weren't coming. And, I heard the reasons why that was, and based on the feedback that I got from parents on those phone calls, those are some of the things that informed the changes it is that we needed to make. So, for some parents, it was transportation, and the Department of Education has been very clear about the fact that, that needs not to be a barrier for students attending ESY programs. Well, you can't take a kid that's only going to be accessing services for an hour and provide them transportation. The buses will be, driving. Physically, it's an impossibility. So how do we then create a program that allows students the ability to access that transportation so that they can benefit from those experiences? And then in the same vein, making sure that, well, one child has tutorial this time, another child has a tutorial that time. I need this child to babysit that child when they're not in tutorial because we work full-time. And the programs just didn't match up. So being able to do it in such a way that allowed the parents the flexibility to be able to access the program and not have those kind of daycare challenges. So it was the feedback that I received from those direct conversations with parents that informed some of those things. And then the other thing too is that, Lisa Rice, who also has done the ESY program, has been talking about the value of having an orientation. And I will apologize for a little while, that kind of, orientation, yeah. After having gone through the first week of ESY, orientation, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
And that orientation is for staff to even meet each
Correct.
other, for them to be able to review the students they're working with, for them to be able to set up classrooms, for, like all of the things that we do in a typical year. We never really did for ESY. Our staff members all kind of showed up the same day that the kids were showing up, and we were all meeting each other and saying, oh, this is the student. And I think that was especially hard on some of our early elementary parents. We have preschoolers that their first experience is ESY. They have a summer third birthday that are showing up to school for the first time and not getting to really meet the teacher. So it just makes more sense to have an opportunity for parents to come in and also kind of meet their teacher if they would like to. It sets up a little bit better of a feel and preparation for all staff and I think our families.
So, for example, one of the things that we had done this year was we gave students name tags to make sure, because the staff weren't familiar with the kids, we'll give them name tags. Well, how long does a name tag last for a preschooler? So then, for some of them, we'll give them lanyards. They last maybe a day longer than the name tags do. But, if a kid gets an opportunity to come in and meet that teacher and everything and make that connection, it makes everything go more smoothly. It just helps to decrease everybody's level of anxiety, and it just makes everything go smoother. So it was worth the additional day. Thank you, Lisa. So.
Great, thank you.
Good job, Lisa.
Well, thank you. Thank you so very much for coming in.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
And tonight we are skipping the preliminary special education budget. It's not quite ready yet. So moving on, speaking of Lisa, Lisa Rice with the Literacy Programming Update.
Thank
Welcome,
you so
Lisa.
much. I'm excited to be here in October because October is Dyslexia Awareness Month. So that kind of was the focus or the theme of the presentation. So thank you very much. So October is Dyslexia Awareness Month, and I like to always start with saying that every month is Dyslexia Awareness Month in Grafton, but we are going to really take a pause this month to do some additional PD and some reflection on dyslexia in Grafton. I just wanted to share with the committee the definition from the IDA, the International Dyslexia Association, and this is the definition of dyslexia that Esy has adopted as well. The very first sentence is very telling. It's a neurological-based disability. So it's not something that's going to be fixed with a pair of glasses. You know, like it's not an eyesight disability that some used to think it was. It's neurological-based disability that we can remediate and rewire the brain with explicit direct instruction. So how widespread is dyslexia? I wanted some great information here, but point out the bottom statistic. This is from the International Dyslexia Association. 15 to 20% of the population has symptoms or characteristics of dyslexia. So when you think of dyslexia, it's no longer thought of as just a special ed service. You could have a classroom teacher with a typical 20 to 22 kids in their class, and 4 of them, typically, based on this statistic, may have characteristics or struggles associated with dyslexia. So this is really where we've spent a lot of time and money on helping our special ed teachers, but also our regular ed teachers as well. And I'm going to highlight some of that through this. One of the things I also want to point out here is not all will qualify for special education. And that's really important for us to keep in mind, and also important for parents to think about as well, that if you do have characteristics or your child has characteristics or a dyslexia diagnosis, it's not an automatic ticket to special ed programming. And so that's why Tier 1, our classroom teachers, and Tier 2, our reading specialists, need to be trained and well-versed in dyslexia as well. So in 2020, we're very fortunate to be in Massachusetts. They've done some excellent work around this. They released the Dyslexia Guidelines, and it's a great resource not only for districts, but also for parents. It shares some common language for all of us to have, and really it's a bridge for all of us to understand what needs to be in place to support students with dyslexia or characteristics of dyslexia. So that's the guidelines is really going to be what I'm going to highlight, and how we as a district meet those requirements in the guideline throughout the presentation. The very first thing in the guidelines that we should pay attention to is our Dyslexia Screener. In the guidelines, there are very specific screeners and skills that we should be screening for K through 3. And I just wanted to show everyone the tool that we use is Dibble's 8th edition. Esy has gone as far as to list approved screeners, and Dibble's 8th is something that we've been using in district for a very long time. It's the 8th edition. We've been using Dibble's, I think, for the last 12 to 14 years. And Dibble's 8th is an approved Esy Dyslexia Screener. And these are the subtests of what we screen for and we're looking for. We take it a step further with our little kindergartners, because if they do not know their letters yet, because they're 5 and they haven't gone to school, we also give them a rapid naming assessment to measure their rapid naming. So if we want to ensure that it's the letter ID that's holding them back and getting that below benchmark score in the fall, we want to just make sure that their rapid naming skills are in place. And we can't do that with the letter ID if they don't know letters. So we have implemented that for our kindergarten students as well, who do not meet the benchmark in that letter identification, just to do an extra layer of screening. So also in the guidelines, they talk a lot about interventions and reading programs. So I showed this last year. I want to just bring us back to the Scarborough's reading rope so that we know that reading is more than just getting the words off the page, right? There's this whole comprehension piece as well that we need to pay attention to. The dyslexia guidelines address the first 3 areas there, but when we talk about reading instruction, it's really all of this. So our core, every single student, kindergarten through 3rd grade, receives Foundations. It's a systematic reading program. It's not mentioned, the guidelines do not mention approved programs, but they mention characteristics of programs that you want. And Foundations checks all those boxes. We also have a phonemic awareness program called Hegarty, and we do that for all of our kindergartners and 1st graders. And we use that in our special ed programming as well. And then our Daily 5 Cafe, even though that isn't mentioned as part of the dyslexia guidelines, but the Daily 5 Cafe is really where we work on those comprehension strands, those other strands in the reading rope. So that's our core. Every student receives this. And then for those students who qualify for our Tier 2, our reading support, it's a regular ed program. We use Orton-Gillingham approach. So there's an umbrella called Orton-Gillingham approach, and Foundations falls under that umbrella. But we've also taken a step further, thanking the Title I grant and Kristen's work. Our reading specialists all did these 90 hours of online training, videotaped themselves, and have all been trained in Orton-Gillingham. And they did that, May and June. So I really kudos to them for rallying around this training. And now our Tier 2, even though we've always had Foundations and a systematic phonics approach, we now have a unified approach that we can use in our Tier 2 programming. So then in our special ed programming, we have Wilson Just Words, we have the Wilson Intensive as well. These are like the Cadillac of programming, but we also have added in this Orton-Gillingham training as well for our special ed for some of our special ed teachers, just expanding the toolbox so that they have additional programming and additional skills to be able to support students. We also have, as Bob mentioned, the Lindamood Bell programming suite. Again, seeing stars, V&V, and then our lips for our earlier, younger readers. Bob also mentioned Language Live. This is something that we are trying at the middle school for our sub-separate classroom. And what really stands out and aligns with the dyslexia guidelines is that the IDA, the International Dyslexia Association, has approved this program. So it is something that we are trying for our 7th and 8th graders who are struggling with reading. It is a curriculum, which is really nice, not just an intervention. So they're going to read about grade level themes and topics that would be in their standards, but in a way that they can access it. So it's really great. It's a blended learning opportunity. So there's work on the computer and teacher-driven. And then just to learn more about dyslexia, I would like to point out you can Google it and you never know who the trusted resources are. Here are our 2 trusted resources. We have the International Dyslexia Association and then the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity. So I just want to highlight a few things in the reading that's new this year. We are, as you know, I know it's been mentioned several times, we're using Star Reading in 1st grade through 10th grade this year so that we have some standardized scores on our reading students. At the middle school, the teachers have really done a great job of doing Notice and Note. It's a comprehension program where students become independent readers and they can comprehend text by noticing things that a typical author does. And then the Mass Literacy Guide. Again, we're very fortunate to live in Massachusetts. DESE has put together a pre-K through 3rd grade guide for all 3 tiers, core, Tier 2 support, and then special ed programming as well. So we're hoping to dive deep into this year through Choice PD and through some coaching opportunities. And then I like to highlight all the professional development, because as Bob mentioned, we do spend a lot of money on it. So it's always good to know that our teachers are always working hard to learn something new and expand their toolboxes. This is something that is brand new or in Gillingham training for our reading teachers, our sub-separate special ed, and our classroom teachers and K-1 special ed teachers. So we now have 16, I love good numbers, right? Good data. We now have 16 teachers who are in Gillingham trained just through this end of the professional development. We continue to have 18 Wilson certified teachers. Many of our SPED and reading specialists have taken time out of their days to take training. And once again, we're going to be offering the International Dyslexia Association annual conference for our teachers, and then they will come back and share the golden nuggets with their colleagues. And I want to highlight one other thing that Massachusetts DESE is doing, and that our teachers are taking advantage of. They received a lot of money, and they're offering professional development. Some of them, the teachers are paid to take, which is great. They're paying about $40 an hour. Some of them is just great. This OG training that they're offering is a $1,300 training that we don't have to pay for. So we register, and we hope we get picked. And some of the topics that our teachers have taken have been OG training. They've taken training around vocabulary and science of reading. In addition to those 16 special ed teachers and reading specialists that the district has sent out, we have an additional 9 teachers who have taken Orton Gillingham training on their own at the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade level. And that's classroom teachers. So I think that that's really impressive. Like, kudos to our teachers who are taking advantage of free, high-quality professional development and bringing it back to our students. And then one other new thing that we're doing this year is this lovely Kristen Perrone. Kristen was doing halftime coaching last year. This year she's going to be doing full-time coaching. She's split between Millbury Street and North Street School. This is a visual of the coaching menu that she's using, but also math is using. So there's no confusion for our classroom teachers. They know what is being offered and who they can go to for support. So we thank Kristen for that as well this year. And I want to put in a plug. We usually do a parent workshop in January, but we figured if you're brand new, you're going to not want to wait till January. So I noticed, though, a couple days ago, this is the same night as town meeting. I won't do that again. I'm sorry. I didn't even think. But Monday night, we are doing a Google Meet online understanding literacy for our parents at kindergarten, first grade, North Grafton, South Grafton. So anybody wants to sign up, just email me, please, and I will get you signed up. That's it.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Yes.
Any questions from the committee? Amy?
Hi, I'm going to go first again. Thank you so much. This is my favorite thing every year. I love it when you come in and you tell us all the changes, and it really helps to illustrate for us and for parents that watch someday that education is just constantly evolving. It's not the same school we went to. It's not even the same school the kids went to last year. It's constantly changing, and it's just so thrilling to see the dollars that we approve get so well spent. I just wanted to say how happy I am about all the investments in professional development, because I feel like when you invest in the staff, you empower the staff. And you increase your retention because they feel like they've got it, they're supported. We want them to stay. They're all rock stars, and we want them to stay. I learned a lot tonight, and I'm going to be going over this again, and I'll probably email you with many, many questions.
Yes, please do.
Any other questions?
That's great.
Great work as always.
Great, thank you.
you
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
All right, next, do we have a strategic plan update?
I was going to propose to the committee that we push the well-being update
Okay.
off till November 8th. We already have a full update scheduled for that meeting on the same topic.
That's good to me.
Can we dismiss everybody? Oh.
Thank you all for
I'm
coming.
sorry, is that the one, the strategic plan on my agenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. So then, speaking of agenda, next up, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
everybody.
But the most exciting part of the meeting is,
It's really love having them all back to back to
Yeah.
back.
It was
Yeah,
Like,
that was great.
It's a lot, but I think it's really helpful.
I just have really enjoyed this meeting.
Yeah, it's great, very informative.
Yeah.
All right, so future agenda, schedule planning, just jump in if you have any additions, comments. We will move the plan update to November 8th. And then the other thing, the special education budget, we're gonna move that. Do you think that'll be ready for next meeting?
Yeah, I think it will.
Okay.
This week, we're doing all the building-based budgets. And
Okay.
we're gonna have to wait for those to be done. So, yeah, next meeting.
Okay. And then I noticed, I wasn't, on the November 29th meeting, it says technology report and FY '24 budget, and then preliminary technology budget, FY '24. Were those two separate things, or?
Nope, just
Or
my
was-
mistake.
just a
I'll
mistake,
clean it
okay.
up. Yep.
And then I wanted to make sure we allocate for the hearing. We were gonna start early at 6:45 on the 10th. And we will have Cooper Brube is presenting.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you, Laura, for bringing that to our attention.
Really
It'll
excited.
be
to
interesting.
listen
Any other changes, questions? No? Okay.
to. So we'll miss.
Can always let me know if you want anything added. Okay, we'll move on to the minutes then. First up, we have the September 13th, 2022 meeting minutes. And, yeah, for you.
Finish yours.
Okay, I was
just gonna
gonna
promote it.
offer a couple of corrections. Usually I look for the motion first, but
Yeah.
then you can make the motion with
With
corrections.
corrections, I
Yeah.
love it, yeah.
I think Graciela, she likes to be referred to as Graciela instead of Maria Graciela. Is that correct? I hate to say this when she's not here, but
I
that is,
think it
I
is.
believe you're right.
that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yep.
So that's one thing. And then paragraph 7, I think, and Laura, you made this motion, right? It has down there that I made it, which I know I did not
Oh.
do.
Yes.
And
Oh, no, I made the motion,
you
yeah,
made the motion,
100%, yeah.
and the basis for the motion to go into executive session,
It was for litigation.
it was for the purpose of discussing and,
We can send,
Investigation,
Adrienne
right?
the wording.
Yeah.
That probably is easier for her. I kind of
Yeah.
fumbled it too, if I recall, because it was different, yeah, so.
So, yeah, so we'll
Yeah.
send a correction for that, and then we'll need to check not that this is a huge issue, but we'll need to check the time. Because I know executive session, and we'll get to that in a second, that it was
Yeah.
adjourned at 8:56, and then this has the regular committee meeting, which we go back into to adjourn right after that, adjourned at 8:50, so
Okay.
time was off somehow. I mean, it's a few minutes, but
Yeah.
if someone looks at that later.
So do we want to change it to 8:57?
Yeah, I don't know what, I mean, maybe it was 8:57. I'd have
That
to
would- yeah, it takes a minute.
check the notes again. But I think Graciela should have that in her notes, so we might
Yep.
need to check with her just to
Okay.
see what she recorded
Yep.
and
I
make
can
sure
do
that.
We can do all that.
Oh, and then, as also present, Frank he was a guest speaker, but I don't think we usually include them, so I think that should be deleted. Frank Rothwell.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Couple small corrections, but great job on the minutes, so.
Yeah, for a new one. Yeah, I had a tiny thing. So I can email. There's like an extra period and just it's just dumb.
I guess.
But in policy 4, so my last name isn't capitalized, so it reads differently. 'Cause my last name's a word.
Laura
So
often made a
Often
motion.
made a motion.
like I often and I
Yeah.
do
I can't
often
believe
You
I
do
missed that.
often make
I often
motions.
do make motions, but just it's a
But you made the same motion often.
right.
And then Graciela's
does-
name is spelled
it
wrong
does
in the
change,
next
yeah.
sentence.
Oh, yeah, Graciela's wrong.
Yeah, so just, I mean, but
Just
this
little
is like
things.
for first time.
Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing work. It was
Yeah.
a tough meeting. little things.
It's hard to do when you're just getting to know the members too, and watch this from a video and all
Yeah.
this stuff, so.
Yeah.
So are we striking
Um,
paragraph 7?
No, that's
Oh.
just my,
I was just gonna call your attention to Maria Graciela is here as well.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think just,
correct.
so
Have her
global
in a search for
change.
place. All right.
Maria Graciela changed to Graciela. And, I think the numbering of the paragraphs was off, so it goes from
Yeah.
5,
Oh,
6,
yeah.
then policy should be 7, and then numbered
Well, thank you,
sequentially
Microsoft Word.
after that. Yeah, I'm
that's
sure
an
there's just a
automatic.
reset.
So Liz, will you submit corrections, or will she watch it? It's probably easier. if you-
Yeah, I'll confirm, I mean, she'll
Yeah.
hear it here, but then there's some particular wording.
We've been working with her.
Okay,
We will
okay.
reach out for sure.
Okay,
We'll
Okay.
tell her not to.
Yeah,
Panic.
great job.
yeah, it's great, but,
It's not serious
Just a
enough that we can't
couple.
approve with changes, right?
right, yeah, I don't see why not.
That's something.
No.
So in that light, I will look for a motion to approve.
Yeah, Madam
the-
Chair?
Yes,
I move to approve the September 13th, 2022 minutes with the corrections noted.
we have a motion second. Motion made and seconded, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye, we have 4, all right, thank you. And then I handed you a copy of the executive session minutes that Graciela prepared. And unless anyone has any objection, we're gonna be voting on those tonight as well.
They look great.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the
There is one typo.
September, there is a typo?
There is.
What is that?
Item 3,
Mm-hmm.
the motion, it should say motion carried, not mentioned carried. Sorry,
Motion, okay.
but Madam Chair, with that change,
Yes,
I move that we approve the minutes.
all right. Motion made-
September, sorry.
Motion made and seconded.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Let's see, is this a roll call vote? Or-
Think so.
Don't think so.
No.
Okay,
We were in executive session.
yeah, it would be, right? All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, we have 4. Okay, thank you. All right, and I had policy subcommittee minutes on the agenda, but we're skipping, we're gonna do those next time,
Yeah, we'll
right?
do them next time.
Yeah.
It was my fault. I think the 3 of you have seen those minutes, but I
Yeah,
hadn't
we
put them
didn't get
into
it
the
in,
folder.
so we still have time, so we'll do that next time. No worries. Okay. Next up, the warrant. Can I get a motion to approve the September 29th, 2022 warrant in the amount of $3,526.87?
So moved.
Thank you, Laura.
Second.
Motion, I have a second. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You abstaining?
No,
We have
I'm
4?
I'm waving. Aye.
All right. Thank you. All right, next up, policy. All right, we have a lot of policies that we went through last time, but
I was just, oh my God, amazing. Who
What's
did that?
I did.
Did you read my mind? Oh, I was just gonna ask if you could put them up, and I thought you were gonna be annoyed at me. Oh, thank you.
oh, this is great. The
This is
policy, thank you.
amazing.
So there's several we're reviewing, but they're really not that,
Quick.
we didn't make many changes. Laura, do you want to go through them, or do you want me to go through
Well,
them?
can I go, I'll go through the J one.
Okay.
Not J, JJ, whatever it is. I
JJI.
can't really read it. Which sucks.
Which we're presenting, so some of them we're presenting, well, one, we're presenting for a second reading tonight.
But there's an additional change since it was in the packet.
Right.
So this is gonna be new information for everybody. Thank you to one of our constituents who called this to our attention. Appreciate it. It just came in today. I don't think, if it's concerning and you guys wanna take it back 100%, it's just, if you could stop right there, Jay. It's just, we hadn't this was such a, of a policy. We didn't do it correctly. But this is updating it with the MIA policy, and all it does is it mentions the vaping, which wasn't in our previous policy, and should be. We obviously follow, I think those guidelines supersede our policies, but it should be here, especially because, we do have a vaping problem, and this is another incentive. So all this does is reflects MIIA's policy that if they are, it includes now e-cigarettes, vape pens, which was not in our previous policy, because it was old. Which just also to me says that policies are living documents, and there's, I don't know, this is very archaic how we do it. So thank you to our constituent. I really appreciate them reaching out and letting us know, and for looking at our policies and our school committee. So pretty awesome. So that's the only change that we have made since this committee has last seen this policy. Just a refresher, this policy was updated to reflect the changes in the semester, and then we took another look at it, and I think it should be good to go, but as I mentioned, I apologize for the last minute on this. If you feel like you need time, we can obviously bring it back in 2 weeks.
Okay, can you scroll down so we can see the last bit of it, please? Thank you.
What is that? Is that me? I can't even see it. Wait, hold on, I'm gonna pull it up on my computer.
Okay.
It's my angle and I'm old, combined.
Inhalants defined as
That
a substance
goes-
that produces mild effect when inhaled.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was just what it was before.
Okay.
So you can see that it doesn't say vaping in it, so that'll be removed. So this was new. It's only highlighted because of my comment, but the whole thing down is new until the, can you see me now? There I am!
Yep.
So here, if I do that, might be easier for you guys. And then maybe I'll just check that off so it's not highlighted. And then you can see that it now includes the e-cigarettes, vape pens, and all similar devices, marijuana, steroids, drug, any controlled subject policy. Just to make it even clearer. I think before it said, drugs to me is all drugs. But it's good to call it out. And it is now with the MIAA, which I've been saying wrong. I've been saying MIIA, so MIAA.
Do we need to say illegal drugs, or does everyone, when they
No,
read
because
that,
all
do
It
they think-
specifically says right there,
it
it
does
is not a
in the last,
violation.
yeah, I like that last sentence, but.
Yeah,
it
I
was-
don't.
Because you can
Yeah.
use legal drugs in an illegal manner.
Yeah,
Well, that's what it says, misuse of over-the-counter
Yeah.
medication, so.
yeah.
Oh, I think that's awesome. I think
Okay.
it's any chance that we have to discourage our students from vaping. And if they know, hey, you can't vape and play sports, maybe that'll dissuade some of them from trying it.
There's no vape in team. Haven't you seen those commercials?
No.
Oh, you haven't?
No.
Oh, you don't watch
made that
Hulu.
up.
No.
They're on all the time on Hulu. There's no vape in team.
Oh,
Yeah.
I have seen that one,
We
yeah,
should
when I
put
was
we
watching
should put
Hulu.
posters in the locker rooms.
Yeah, it's a good
I like it.
PSA.
I mean, and I do think what I did tell the constituent, and I agreed 100%, and again, I appreciate it, is obviously we go with MIAA. Like,
It's there
they're,
anyway.
they're gonna go over us on our policies, as much as I love policy. But anyway, so I think we might be done with this policy for a little bit.
I had one tiny thing that I wanted to bring up, and I was absent last time, so I didn't get a chance, and I know I had sent an email, and nobody wanted to talk about it, but I wanted to explain myself.
Okay.
The use of the word freshman in the second bullet point. I realize that that is a term that has been on the books for years, but as we have moved in our policies to remove gender-specific language, freshmen is gender-specific, which is why I had proposed changing it to ninth graders, which is not. I'm not saying we need to do a search and replace everywhere. I just thought while we were in here, it might not hurt to have a discussion about that. And it's not, I'm not championing a cause here. I'm just saying for consistency.
Look, I'm not against making people feel welcome. We're not changing gender specific as much as we're adding in that people can identify as they. So it's not necessarily like I mean, that maybe sounds contradictory, but it wasn't necessarily like we're just taking out all gender-specific language. We do take chairperson, superintendent, and that sort of thing. I mean, I think freshmen, I think it's a larger conversation, but I'm not like gonna lay my, I don't know. I haven't heard from, I don't know.
I guess I don't, I've never felt like the word freshman was so gender specific that I mean,
I think it's because I've moved on to college, right? I've got a kid in college.
Women,
and they don't use it
women,
anymore.
it refers to everyone.
Look, my
Right, the
college
word-
didn't use it 20, 30 years ago because they called
everyone.
us first-year students, but it never was made fun of.
It
mean,
just
the
opened
word
my eyes to
woman-
the use of the word, that's all.
The word woman has the word man in it,
Yeah.
too. I feel like we'd either have to be completely consistent in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, not use any of them. Do you know what I mean? It seems odd to do 9th graders for 9th graders and then call 10th graders sophomores, I guess.
Well, if any of the other grades were called out, then yeah, we'd have to have that discussion, but it's just that one. I don't know. I'm not gonna vote no, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, I'm not,
fine with
if I would welcome hearing from any students if they feel really
Yep. Fair.
uncomfortable with it. To me, it's a larger conversation that isn't gonna start with our one policy, because they're gonna go to high school and still be called freshmen, so I think we would need to really have a district-wide conversation on it. And I'm not sure, again, like, I'm the first one to champion, so I know this might sound weird. So, it's something to think about, Amy, for sure, and always wanna try to think about it, but it would, to me, need to be a district-wide thing. Like, you're no longer gonna be called a freshman, and that is not coming from the four of us.
I agree, and I think, I guess I'm not ready to start that discussion yet, or I guess we're already starting the discussion, not ready to start that fight yet, and maybe it's something that we, take home and think about and, keep that in mind going forward, but I'm not ready to,
We'll say though,
kick things off by
For this-
changing this word and, starting something that we're not really sure where we want to go with it exactly yet.
I welcome to hear from students that have a preference, and we can
Yeah.
take it up later. But yeah, I don't know that this is the venue for that.
although for this policy, we could very easily say all ninth grade students and not make it a general thing where every time we look at policy, because it almost reads better, all ninth grade students as opposed to all freshmen. I don't know.
We could, but I think now that we've had this discussion, we
Yeah.
could, and the reason that it was brought up, which is a, legitimate reason, but I think
Fair
that,
enough.
that will be, the cause behind, and I don't know,
Yeah.
I think it's,
Well, it doesn't sound like we
Certainly a-
have an overwhelming majority of the, tonight to make that, so, not to make your.
No.
Okay.
Does anyone want to, make a motion then?
Move to accept policy JJI, student athletic regulations, as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? We have 4, all right, thank you.
And thank you to Kevin Carney for all of his help and work with this. Kristen, can you let him know?
That
all
was a
set.
fun one.
That's what we
Or-
have to get to jail.
I was thinking that because we have 2 that we're recommending for deletion, and then we have 1 that we're recommending with no change, and then 2 as a first reading. Do you think, could we group them together? Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, whatever you want.
Okay. Do you want to go through these 2, or do you want me to do it? I'm happy to
sure,
go
no,
either way.
I'll go through them.
Okay, or we could split them.
Yeah, we can
Let's
split
split
them.
them.
How about
All
we
right.
do the getting rid of? I think that was me.
Okay, those
Um,
are fun.
oh, where is it?
Up there,
All right,
too.
I want to use my computer.
Okay.
Okay, so so we decided to go through section F, which is very quick, and we're able to get through them all, which is so nice, and this is on facilities. And we're recommending deleting 2 of these policies. One is a facilities development goals, which we did not think belonged in policy. That seems to be job description between Tony and who he reports to and the facilities team, that they would set their goals, and it wouldn't be in our policy what their goals are. It isn't an MASC policy. It's not a policy that other districts use. It seemed to be a little bit out of our scope. So we are recommending as a subcommittee to delete this policy, going on our never-ending quest to shorten our policies. And then the other one we want to delete is, oh, this was policy FJ, which pretty much just referred you to another reference policy, FJR, and we just thought that was a waste of space and was also unnecessary. So those were our two recommended to delete. They don't really change any of our practices or our facilities management. It's just, I don't know, being more efficient.
Cleaning up and making sure policies are truly policies, and we have a good number that we can actually utilize and people can
Can I ask a
review.
question?
Yeah, of course.
FJ-R, the MASC code for that?
It's, we
No.
talked about that. No, it's not.
This isn't even, well, go ahead, Liz,
Yeah,
because I brought that up. We had a discussion.
We had a discussion about that, and I had voted for keeping the numbering the way it was previously, just because it was, and why change it? But it didn't. It didn't follow MASC or anything, and so Laura brought up, well, why is that FJR?
So R means it's a reference.
Yeah.
So it really, we probably should just move this to FJ, which I don't think I explained. I also tried to get rid of this policy, so we did have a long discussion on it, so I'll let Liz champion it. We did, I think ultimately I was 2-3, because I think Kristen also agreed with Liz. So we could talk about making this the new FJ rather than, because it's not a reference to anything, which I think is possibly the confusion, Amy, if I'm.
Yeah, you could also just,
Yeah.
you could also put a note that says formerly FJR, and then it wouldn't be confusing. It doesn't seem like this is gonna be referred to anywhere as FJR if FJ is gone.
Right.
I wouldn't
So-
think. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe, okay, I like that idea.
I'd be in favor of that,
Okay.
just for consistency. You know I like consistency.
I think we have
I'm a
consensus
Virgo.
there. All right, I am overruled.
Well,
No, I don't.
we got new
So we're gonna,
information.
are we
I could
gonna
go either
vote
way, I
to redact the, are we just gonna?
So well, what I'd like to do is, if someone would like to, make a motion for the two that we're going to delete,
Oh, okay.
and we could do it that way, and then we'll look at, and then we'll have a
First reading.
accept it as a first reading, and then we'll make this change, we'll bring it back next time for FJ, formerly FJR.
I move
And-
to remove policy FA, facilities development goals, and FJ, site/facility renovations or improvements from our policy catalog.
Second.
And,
Oh, never mind.
and to rename,
No.
No,
all right, let's do it separate then.
yeah, we're gonna separate it.
Okay,
And I think we have a second?
We did have a
All
second.
right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, we have 4, thank you. All right,
I really liked
now,
that you called it a catalog.
did I?
Yeah, fancy.
It was
policy catalog.
fancy, I liked it.
Okay.
So now we'll go and
Collection.
look at the policies that we're offering for first readings today. So we have FBB, the enrollment projections. Scroll up to that one. I think we just made minor changes to this one.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah. It's just the wording of things.
yeah. So we just made some minor changes to the wording just to
Ah, yes.
clarify.
the removal of the passive voice.
Yes, yes. It's very important to Laura especially.
Can I say
Yeah.
one thing?
Yeah.
When I was in high school, if you used passive voice in English class, you failed.
Yeah.
Failed?
Pennsylvania. Yeah.
We just
That's
got
what
points off.
No,
We didn't
you
fail.
would fail
Fail.
if you used the word is in an essay in high school. So it is important.
You were
to me.
trained, yeah.
It's important.
Whatever literacy
No, it's
program
a-
they were running,
Yeah.
it was
With the
strict.
theme readers.
I think I
Oh,
I
jeez.
agree. I think it's important. We need a period at the end of that sentence, but other than that, it looks good.
Oh, yeah.
Can I ask if,
See that until
if
it's on the big
superintendent
screen.
of schools has official title, and if so, should the S in schools be
Oh,
capitalized?
probably.
Okay, just a question.
Yeah. Capitalization, not a big passion of mine, apparently.
It's
Passive voice?
tricky. I think at some point when we're reviewing these in segments,
Yeah.
it's difficult to get the definitions and the defined terms exactly right. And we really, like, we try to go back and look at the other policies and make sure we're being consistent. But until we have a definitions section or something where that we can reference all the time, that's gonna be a challenge, is to make all these,
Sounds
make
like
sure
a
the
summer
terms
project.
are.
Standardized terms.
Someday.
If we had them all printed in a nice catalog.
Yeah.
Manual was the word I meant to say,
Oh,
but
manual.
we don't really even have that anymore, I don't think. I mean, there probably is a printed manual somewhere.
But that's a waste.
If it is, it's
Waste of a
probably
tree.
out of date because we change it every 2 weeks. So.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Yes, Laura.
I would like to make a motion to approve FBB enrollment projections as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Seeing none. All those in favor? 4. All right, thank you. And the other one, let's see. Actually, we have FF, which was a policy about naming buildings. We didn't have any changes to offer to this, so I think we can skip the first reading and just
Yeah, we move to accept it,
move to
yeah.
accept it
Yeah.
as is.
So moved.
So moved. We have a motion.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on this? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
4. All right, thank you. All right, let's see. So FFA. So this was memorials. This was a policy that as we were looking at, as I was looking at FF and the MASC policy, FF and MASC policies, I saw this one regarding memorials. And so I just thought it might be helpful to have a policy to point to, because this is kind of a, it's a sensitive topic, and we wanted to have something in writing that we could point to that would address, if anyone wants to put memorials in place for anyone who has passed in our community. As I think Kristen noted during our meeting, the primary way we want to memorialize people is through awards and scholarships, and it is a school environment, and while memorials are very important and beautiful, we have the bench at GMS, and we have trees and other things that help people to deal with a loss and remember those who've passed. It's not something we want to be prolific throughout the schools, so we thought this might be helpful. Anything to add to that, Laura?
I think you said it nicely.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I did want to,
Yeah.
sorry. You did say it nicely. I just
Go
did want to add that this is not taking away from any of the things that are already done. Everything is still being kept, but just kind of moving forward, giving some guidelines. We thought would be helpful.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, and the last sentence does
It
articulate
does say it.
that.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to say
Yeah,
it.
it was good. Thank you for pointing that out.
I like that it says limited, because
Mhm.
I feel like it leaves an opportunity for a staff member who has had a very large impact directly on students to still have a presence on a campus for the purposes of the students' emotional health.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Like we were thinking of Julie's Flynn.
Yeah,
Like
that was the one
absolute-
that-
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
But you're right, I've seen schools struggle, specifically with deaths of students,
Mm-hmm.
and how that is, sorry, I feel like I'm turned away from you, and I apologize. Like at graduation ceremonies with an empty chair, and there was some
Mhm.
fighting about that in a neighboring town. So I like that there's the opportunity. It doesn't shut the door. I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because I do think, in the interest of the kids, there may come a time when,
100%.
Exactly.
you know,
And we
Yeah.
had a long discussion about that and added that to, that
That's
shall be
great.
limited. We added that to
Yeah.
MASC because we felt the same, and we recognize that there are appropriate times, and
Makes-
ways, and we
makes
leave
more
that
work for us down the road, but
potentially, because
What else
I
are we
was
gonna do?
throwing up that every memorial, they happen while I've been on this committee, they haven't come to us.
Right, that's
To
true.
be
Okay.
approved. It was a building level decision, and I respect that, and we often say, we let them do their jobs. But if there's guidance, or if there's somebody thinking, you know what, this isn't appropriate, but I have concerned a parent or something, I can now, CYA a little bit, like, nope, this is our policy, let's think about another way, a scholarship. And we have a lot of scholarships at the high school for some of our beloved staff who have passed. So it leaves it open, which, I think sometimes we like to do, because not everything is black and white, and grief, especially as Liz kind of said, is certainly not. On the other hand, you can certainly go down, a hallway of sadness in the high school, or, or what you mentioned.
well, in
with
this
the-
student, you did this for this student, you should do
Right.
the same thing, kind of.
Exactly.
I think that's what happened in
Right,
the neighboring
right.
community.
Yeah, and it's difficult.
It is difficult.
Yeah. And so the edits that you see are edits to the MASC policy, so we changed it a bit from what they had,
Yeah.
what they used.
I,
All right, I'll entertain a motion for this.
sure, I'd make a motion to adopt FFA memorials as a first reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion, any further discussion? No? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, great, thank you. And so now we go back to the last policy, FJR, which I think we did make, aside from the title, did we make
did.
a couple of changes
Just a
to the
couple on
end?
To 7, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Go, Jay. Do you need to read it?
no, I'm good.
I'm gonna bump it up. Wait a minute.
So this was, and correct us if we're wrong, but this was just to align with how the materials regarding any proposed building project were to be submitted and reviewed, and we wanted to make sure that it was clear that it wasn't us, but it was the superintendent who have the final approval of that, and that we'll review it and comment, and and superintendent can take that, but the ultimate decision was the superintendent's, not ours. So, any questions about this? All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept this as a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? We have 4. All right, thank you. Whew. That was
That's
great.
the whole F.
That was F. We're
All
done
of
with
it.
F.
Yeah. Isn't that exciting?
That's great. Feels so good.
Feels so good.
So what's next?
Any member reports tonight?
I meant on policy, but.
Oh, what's next? I don't know. We have a
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, we have a
So
schedule.
I did
it's
have,
very
I did have
complicated.
a question, and I apologize that it pertains to policy.
Yes.
It's not on the agenda. I don't know where you folks are gonna go from here, but I would like to entreat you to take a look at the school nursing policies for trips before the kids go to Canada.
Didn't we
There's some
look at
very
that one?
inconsistent, outdated information in those
I thought we
policies.
just, didn't
We
we just
did that
recently
over the
looked at
summer.
those?
We just did that.
For
Okay.
trips.
Yeah, no, but we had a discussion, it was
Yeah,
right
you-
before the end of the year, and I said, oh, but there aren't any at the end of the year, it came up, we'll have to go back through our notes, but
Okay.
thanks, Amy, yeah.
Yeah, we can-
When's the Canada trip?
Oh gosh, they were just
February,
here.
right?
February.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
February,
Okay,
okay,
so we
we
have
can
time.
handle that.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but there was just,
No,
when
no.
my daughter went on a different trip
Yeah,
last year, there was some inconsistencies within the protocols, and we had a new school nurse,
yes.
and I just feel like it just needs to have a look.
We
So
had
was
a
the
big-
issue the policy or the implementation of the policy?
I don't know,
Okay.
that's why I think,
Yeah, no, we had a big discussion about this, and I think we decided we were gonna bring it back, so thanks for the reminder.
oh, all
and we
right,
didn't.
I
Yeah.
have no recollection of that, Senator.
No, it wouldn't have been at, it was in a policy
Oh, all right,
subcommittee meeting.
okay.
So, which are open to the public. It wasn't a secret meeting, but we did have the discussion. But thank you, Amy, because haven't brought it back.
I was probably trying to get my kid a COVID test for the 11,000th time.
And then remember,
Go on
Chris,
the trip.
no, I remember we had a long discussion about it, and I definitely remember saying, "Oh, we have time because there are no more field trips." And you said, "Yes, there are for G term," and I was like, "Oh."
So we must
Yeah.
have had that conversation.
We did. We have a lot of notes, so thank you,
Yeah.
Amy.
Awesome.
Definitely.
I don't even know where it is in here.
No, we'll get it
Okay.
in.
I figure you guys will,
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
We can do that.
but yay F.
Okay, any member reports tonight?
No.
No? All right. We don't have any correspondence. We're not going into executive session, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
No moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned. Good night, Grafton.
Good night.